CGTN, China Global Television Network.
At least 373 people confirmed dead following a tsunami in Indonesia. Protests over the high cost of living continue in Sudan. A mastermind behind some Mogadishu bomb attacks in 2017 has been executed. Welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta alongside my colleague Rama Young with the business headlines.
Thank you very much, Richard. Here's what's coming up a little later in the hour. We'll be looking at the highs and the lows of economies across Africa in 2018. And the US government shutdown is likely to stretch deep into the new year. We'll have the details on that and lots more coming up for you in the course of the hour. For now, though, let's start with the latest in current affairs with Richard.
We start in Indonesia, where the country is still dealing with the aftermath of a deadly tsunami. The death toll has risen to 373. More than 1,400 people are injured, while over 120 remain missing after Saturday's disaster. The Anak Krakatau volcano erupted again on Sunday, one day after the deadly waves hit coastal towns around Sunda Strait between the islands of Java and Sumatra. Let's take a look.
Here in Bataan province, homes have been destroyed by the deadly tsunami. Rescue workers are sifting through rubble, looking for bodies. Elsewhere, survivors are stranded and afraid to return home.
I am afraid. Sometimes I ask my son-in-law to check our house. I don't know what to say. I'm really afraid. I've not gone home in the last 2 days.
Underwater slides from a volcanic eruption are suspected to have caused the tsunami. Authorities have called for vigilance as the volcano continues to spew ash. The country's existing tsunami detectors were unable to detect the natural disaster, causing the deadly waves to catch inhabitants by surprise.
We cannot conclude for now. Yes, it may have been caused by a quake, but we do not know where the source is. It's still being checked out. In the future, the meteorology, climatology and geophysics agencies will provide detection equipment, warning systems that can give warning to everyone.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has sent his condolences to the victims of the natural disaster.
Indonesia is a friendly neighbor of China. The tsunami in the Sunda Strait of Indonesia has caused huge losses of lives and properties, raising grave concerns on the Chinese side. Chinese President Xi Jinping has sent a message of condolences to Indonesian President Joko Widodo, expressing deep mourning for victims and sincere sympathies to the injured and the bereaved families. We believe that under the leadership of the Indonesian government, the people in the disaster-stricken area can overcome the disaster and get early recovery of normal work and life. China will provide aid within its capacity for Indonesia's relief work through channels like the Red Cross Society.
Rescue and search efforts are still underway, with a death toll expected to rise. Astatal, CGTN.
Our correspondent Martin Lowe is in the Anyer district of the badly hit Banten province on Java Island. He updated us on the situation on the ground as Anak Krakatau continues to erupt.
That shockingly high death toll that we've heard about, but on top of that, there are still dozens of people who are simply unaccounted for. And I've been watching people clawing with their bare hands through the rubble of broken buildings, pulling away bricks and rocks and pieces of timber, and these are their own relatives they're looking for. They're looking for husbands and wives and children. And just a few short minutes ago, there was a mad scramble where I am, and they thought a baby might be still underneath the rubble of a broken down building. Nothing was found. Throughout the day, discoveries have been made, but unfortunately, everyone who has been discovered had died. The chances of finding survivors now are extremely slim. The devastation here is absolute. We're in the remains, the shattered remains of a beachfront hotel at the moment, and it's been completely leveled. All that's left are tangled pieces of metal which once supported buildings. But all around here, there are cars that have been hurled into trees. There are buildings that have been flattened and their roofs have been torn up. Just a short distance from here, there are 6 or 7 metal shipping containers that were swept inshore by the tsunami and are now lying scattered at crazy angles. Just at this one beachfront hotel alone where I'm standing, 30 people were killed and another 60 were seriously hurt. Even now, there's very little that could be done. It's so close in global terms that any tsunami that was generated would race ashore just in a matter of moments. There would be no chance of giving any warning. In fact, most of the people who normally live here have been moved out to safer ground. But of course, rescue workers and those involved in the search for survivors or even for recovery of the dead have no choice but to remain.
In Sudan, 22 people have been allegedly killed and dozens injured in massive demonstrations that have swept through 28 cities due to rising commodity prices and living conditions. The Sudanese police have used force to disperse protesters as demonstrations continued for a 4th consecutive day. Angry demonstrators burned the headquarters of the National Congress in the town of Rawaba, while several areas in the state of South Darfur witnessed similar demonstrations. A Sudanese presidential aide, Faisal Hassan Ibrahim, has confirmed the death of 2 Sudanese armed men who were participating in demonstrations in Gadaref state 2 days ago. The 2 were killed while wearing civilian clothes. The mastermind behind militant car bombs that killed 26 people and injured nearly 40 others in Mogadishu in 2017 has been executed. Abdicator Abukar was convicted of being behind a hotel bombing that killed 10 people and an explosion near the Ministry of Sports that claimed the lives of 9 people and a car bomb near an Italian restaurant in the capital that killed 7. Al-Shabaab wants to overthrow the UN-backed Somali government and impose strict Islamic law. It has, however, been losing territory steadily since AU peacekeepers arrived a decade ago. Frequent bombings in the capital are, however, still being carried out. This past weekend, at least 13 people were killed and 17 wounded in a bomb attack in the country's capital. The Al-Qaeda-linked group has since claimed responsibility for the attack. All right, Abdulaziz Billo has been monitoring developments and now joins us from the Somali capital. Thank you for joining us. Now, how has the news of the execution been received in Mogadishu? Is it enough to deter such terror attacks?
Well, the news of the execution of Abdulqadir Abukar today in the early hours of the morning comes as a huge relief across the country, and more so to the 30 or so families that lost their loved ones in the 2 deadly bombings that he helped coordinate in 2017 before his arrest. And our brief history about the individual who was executed today is that he is not the average Al-Shabaab fighter. He's an elderly man. He's 42 years old, and contrary to what people say here, that Al-Shabaab is brainwashing young people to use them as assessment, as assets or suicide bombers. This man was 42 years old, so there's no way that he would have been brainwashed by Al-Shabaab. So he was even arrested while he was placing a vehicle next to a government-owned institution so that it can detonate there. That's when he was nabbed. So the news of his arrest and the news of his execution rather comes as a huge relief, especially in a capital that's coming to terms with another deadly terror attack over the weekend that killed almost 20 people. So you're right, the execution is a big setback also for Al-Shabaab that lost a key asset that helped it coordinate deadly terrorist attacks here in the city.
All right. Now, speaking of that terror attack, can you talk to us about the security situation in Mogadishu currently, especially after Saturday's attack?
Well, the attack seems to have caught security apparatus by surprise, because for the bomber to reach where he reached and detonate the vehicle, he must have passed 3 different security checkpoints belonging to the intelligence and the army. So how he reached the National Theatre and carried out such a large-scale attack that killed almost 20 people, most of them government security forces, is a big question, and one that has frustrated all the security efforts that were put in place in securing Mogadishu. So it's a big challenge for the Somali government now to explain how, despite all the apparatus in place, how the bomber managed to reach there. So for now, they've heightened security all across the city. The police have been deployed in major junctions across the city to regulate the flow of vehicles and to check if suicide bombers and vehicles laden with explosives have managed to enter the city. But the fact that he carried out attack that Saturday is a big setback for the months of work that security forces had put in place in securing Mogadishu.
Can you speak to us of any arrests that have been made following Saturday's attacks?
Well, according to the intelligence officials here in Somalia, 2 individuals are currently being investigated after they were arrested. Now, they're saying that the mastermind of the 2 bombings that happened over the weekend was arrested shortly after information was given by members of the public, and that's how the intelligence were able to nab the mastermind. And the driver of the second vehicle that exploded was arrested before the vehicle detonated. So security forces are actually being praised for being tough enough to know the individuals who carried out the twin bombings over the weekend. So investigation is still underway. The government, the government of Somalia has called on any information that can be available to the security forces to be provided in regards to the individuals who carried out this attack. But Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility and said that their main target was the National Theatre, there where government forces and civil servants are have been encouraged by the government to help in the construction of the National Theatre through a voluntary program called Ishelqan here in the local language. So the target was to kill as many people as possible on that given day, government workers, security forces who are the theatre doing reconstruction work.
All right. Thank you for that update. That was Abdulaziz Billo reporting from Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. Now, still in Somalia, rivalry between 2 militant organizations with different ideologies is threatening the thriving business community in that country. CGTN's Abdulaziz Billo reports from Mogadishu on how the confrontation has taken a toll on local businesses.
2 rival militant groups in Somalia are engaged in what observers term as an economic war. Earlier this week, the spokesperson of Al-Shabaab warned ISIL militants of dire consequences after pro-ISIL fighters attacked and killed dozens of the Al-Qaeda-linked group in the northeast part of the country. The militant group spokesperson termed ISIL as a disease, vowing to uproot it from the country. Hussein Sheikh Ali is a security expert and a former national security advisor to the Somali president. He says efforts to extort money by ISIL poses a big threat to Al-Shabaab, which enjoyed monopoly on taxing companies to fund some of its high-profile attacks in the city.
2 months ago, where Daesh have started to threaten the big businesses in Mogadishu to pay taxes, and they targeted a particular company, managed to kill a dozen or so employees of that company because that company refused to pay the extortion money. And Shabab then realized if they don't deal with them, it's going to affect their income, B, the influence on the ground.
ISIL made headlines in 2016 after seizing a port town in Puntland, an autonomous region northeast of the country. It has since used the rugged mountain terrain to train new fighters. But in recent months, ISIL has claimed responsibility for a number of attacks in Mogadishu, creating concern for a group that has been branded as the deadliest terrorist outfit in the continent. Experts say that the resurgence of ISIL in Somalia after its defeat in Syria and Iraq is a sign that the group is planning to expand its footprint across the continent.
They're looking for non-government areas around the world, and Somalia is one of the closest areas that they can come back to the south in the gateway of Africa. They have a footprint, they're not strong, but they have the potential to grow.
ISIL's rapidly expanding terrain has also caught the attention of Somali authorities, who have since vowed to offer both militant groups a crushing response. This man is the leader of the ISIL faction in Somalia, Sheikh Abdul Qadir Mu'min, a former Al-Shabaab commander who fell out of favor with the current leadership before fleeing to Puntland. Big businesses here in the country have recently come under increased pressure, and faced with very little options, they now have to pay 3 different forms of taxes, one to the Somali government, to Al-Shabaab, and now to pro-ISIL militants. Experts say that the US drone strikes have helped weaken the militants' attacking capabilities in some of the rural areas, but the group's changing tactics in urban centers continues to worry many in the country, with no end in sight to the current violence. Abdul Aziz Bilo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
All right, time now for a short break, but we have a lot more news coming your way, including Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari calls for a strengthening of regional efforts against security threats in the West African region. Burundi's army opposes the request by the African Union to withdraw 1,000 soldiers serving in AMISOM.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
All right, moving on to the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo now. The United Nations has expressed hopes for free and fair elections following the postponement of the exercise to the 30th of December. But hours to Christmas, ordinary citizens of the vast Great Lakes nation are cautious about their celebrations. Let's take a look.
One of the common scenes during Christmas festivities in the Democratic Republic of Congo, lots of consumers engaging in shopping sprees, all in a bid to entertain their families. For traders, it is also a time to make a kill.
It's just the day before everyone arrives with their family to take toys, cookies, and all for the children.
But this year, Christmas is different. Presidential and legislative elections have just been postponed under controversial circumstances. The tension is palpable.
It's not usual because usually we do it when there are no elections. Not everyone is comfortable. It's not usual at all.
Politics is part of life. Like us Christians, Christianity is life, and this is how everything gets tangled up. We pray to God that the elections will be peaceful.
On Thursday, DRC's Electoral Commission announced a postponement of elections until the 30th of December. According to the Commission, a fire incident in one of its warehouses destroyed part of election materials. These elections are shaping up to be one of the most contested, as incumbent President Joseph Kabila is retiring. There is optimism for a smooth transition of power, and if it happens, this will be the first time since Congo attained independence in 1960. Wilkisa Nyabwa, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Chris Ochomringa is following developments in the DRC and now joins us with the latest from Kinshasa. Chris, thank you for joining us. Is there any risk of having the election postponed beyond December the 30th?
Yeah, that is a possibility, according to two presidential candidates and an analyst I spoke to. They're saying anything is possible in the DRC. Now, they have very serious doubts about this election being held on the 30th because they say there are serious logistical issues that haven't been sorted by the Electoral Commission. They say there's some election officials who are still being trained right now. And so they have serious reservations about this happening. And they also cite the example of the fire outbreak that happened at a warehouse last week. Immediately after the outbreak, the president of the Electoral Commission assured the country that elections will happen on the 23rd according to the electoral calendar. But then later he backtracked and said they will be postponed. So people have serious doubts about this happening on the 30th.
Okay, now what measures has the Electoral Board put in place to ensure that the postponed election is credible, most importantly?
Now, the Electoral Commission doesn't give specifics about the measures that they will put in place to ensure that this election is credible. What they do is call a press conference and tell people that, look, everything is going to be fine, we've already dispatched materials, and so everyone is just going by their word. President Kabila recently was quoted in the international press saying that they'll do everything in their power to ensure that this election is perfect without any major problems. So people are just waiting to see. There's no mention of any specifics, the measures that they have taken so far.
What is the mood like, Chris, in the DRC, especially seeing that this could be the first smooth transfer of power since the country gained independence?
People here are eagerly waiting for the 30th. It's been 2 years since 2016 that they were supposed to hold elections, and so they have been very eager. Very many people in this country have had, life is very tough for them, and so they believe that the election is the only way of getting a better livelihood. And so they were very disappointed about the postponement, but they said, look, 1 week isn't a very long period, let's just wait. We attended a rally of some opposition members, and people, young people, millions of them, were chanting that, look, the 30th is going to be the red line. If the government crosses that period without holding elections, then it's going to be something else. Now, regarding what they mean by something else, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. It could be violence, it could be bloodshed. We're just waiting to see how things turn out on the 30th.
Okay, thank you once again for your insight and analysis. That's Chris Ochamringa reporting from Kinshasa. Now to West Africa now. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari is calling for strengthening of regional efforts against security threats posed by religious extremism in West African regions. President Buhari was speaking at the ECOWAS Heads of State Summit held in the Nigerian capital Abuja. CGTN's Kelechi Amekalam has more.
It's the 54th session of the West African Regional Summit. Regional heads, government delegates, and members of the diplomatic corps are gathered here in the Nigerian capital, Abuja. Issues bordering on regional integration, political governance, economic development, as well as peace and security top the agenda for discussions. Declaring the summit open, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari urged member states to forge a collective front against insecurity in the region.
It's a matter of concern that terrorism and violent extremism have continued to threaten the peace and security in our sub-region. This threat calls for collective action on our part if we are to effectively and definitively eliminate it.
The region is home to numerous extremist groups like Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda and ISIL in West African province. The summit also considered several other reports, including the political situation in Guinea-Bissau, Togo and the region, and urged proper security intervention.
The authority urges the security forces to continue to demonstrate professionalism in their mission of maintaining order and ensuring the security of people and property. It states its determination to continue to closely monitor developments in Togo to ensure that these decisions and recommendations are properly implemented.
Boko Haram's terrorists have continued to stage attacks on civilian and military installations, especially in Nigeria's northeastern region. As a result, tens of thousands have been killed and millions displaced from their homes. Now many are hoping that the regional heads are able to walk the talk. Kelechi Amekalam, CGTN, Abuja, Nigeria.
To East Africa, Burundi's army has opposed the request by the African Union to withdraw 1,000 soldiers serving in AMISOM. Burundi instead wants a proportionate number of troops to be withdrawn from each AU member country. Burundi is the second biggest contributor to the 21,500 strong peacekeeping force. The AU is gradually scaling back its AMISOM force as Somalia's nascent armed forces are trained and deployed to replace them. The withdrawal request comes amid tensions between Burundi and the AU after it issued an arrest warrant against former President Pierre Buyoya. The AU claims Buyoya was involved in the assassination of the first elected Hutu president. Well, Chinese President Xi Jinping's speech commemorating China's 40th anniversary of reform and opening up has garnered much attention in Egypt. Noted Chinese sinologist Muhsin Farghani spoke about the lessons countries like Egypt can learn from China's development. Let's take a look.
President Xi mentioned in his speech that China will promote the harmonious development of the world, promote world peace, and safeguard world stability. That is to promote the establishment of an international environment conducive to comprehensive economic cooperation. Therefore, the Chinese model will not only benefit China, but will also benefit the world, especially the Arab countries. I think that the Arab world, including Egypt, also needs a socialist development model similar to the Chinese characteristics. I don't know whether Egyptian thinkers and scholars can create a theory, but the success of the Chinese practice has made us learn to benefit from it.
Senegal just concluded a seminar on the study and development of the Chinese language in Africa in the capital, Dakar. The discussions focused on the theme, theory, and practice of teaching Chinese as a foreign language.
Language continues to play a critical role as relations between China and Africa strengthen. Mandarin is the second most used language on the web, with growing interest on the African continent.
We have undoubtedly understood that language is the image of a country, and when you look at it in the international context, it is clear that China's place is in a global context.
China invests no less than $60 billion each year in Africa. This economic stake facilitates a better connection between Africa and China in the field of education. By 2050, Chinese could become the world's first business language.
The Chinese language is a compulsory language because we consider that today, a young manager has the obligation to speak Mandarin. It will be as beneficial for him as it will be for the image of the country or for the image of our companies in the future.
In Dakar, local authorities are now advocating for the establishment of a curriculum dedicated not only to the language, but also to Chinese culture and philosophy.
We need to understand the sociology, history and philosophy of China, so that Senegal too can be inspired by China and implement these elements in order to move towards its emergence.
Beyond investing in the teaching of the Chinese language, China has invested heavily in education as an important economic aspect, crucial to the future of Sino-African relations.
China has truly achieved great success in all areas over the past 40 years. It truly is a very valuable experience. I hope that our African friends can draw inspiration from this experience to develop Africa, to further develop Sino-Senegalese relations and to develop African society, as well as to improve and raise the living standards of African populations.
Each year, about 40 Confucius Institutes strive to promote learning of the Chinese language and culture throughout the continent. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
Indonesia is still dealing with the aftermath of a deadly tsunami. The death toll has risen to 373. More than 1,400 people were injured, while over 120 remain missing after Saturday's disaster. The Anak Krakatau volcano erupted again on Sunday, one day after the deadly waves hit coastal towns around Sunda Strait between the islands of Java and Sumatra. In Sudan, 22 people have been allegedly killed and dozens injured in massive demonstrations that have swept through 28 cities due to rising commodity prices and living conditions. Angry demonstrators burned the headquarters of the National Congress in the town of Rawaba, while several areas in the state of South Darfur witnessed similar demonstrations. The mastermind behind the militant car bombs that killed 26 people and injured nearly 40 others in Mogadishu in 2017 has been executed. Abdicator Abukar was convicted of being behind the hotel bombing that killed 10 people and explosions near the Ministry of Sports that claimed the lives of 9 people, and a car bomb near an Italian restaurant in the capital that killed 7. And that is a wrap of your top stories. All right, let's go to Rama Yang for the latest business news.
Thank you very much, Richard. Here's what's coming up in business. We'll be looking at the highs and the lows and the data from economies in Africa in 2018. And we'll explore why a US government shutdown is likely to stretch into the new year.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
All right, then let's start with a broad look at the region. Sub-Saharan Africa's economic recovery is expected to progress slowly into 2019. Output in the region was relatively low this year. That prompted the World Bank to adjust this year's economic growth forecast to 2.7% from an earlier forecast of 3.1%. Nigeria and South Africa, these are the two economies that normally push the region into much faster growth, are struggling to perform at potential, even though commodity prices have improved, or at least they had improved in the middle of the year. According to the World Bank, lower oil production in Nigeria did offset the effect of higher oil prices. In South Africa, weak household consumption growth was compounded by a contraction in the agricultural sector. The capital inflows to the region have grown exponentially over the years. Experts are sounding the alarm over the rate at which some countries are taking on debt. The IMF reported this year that liability inflows ballooned from $3 billion in the year 2000 to $60 billion in 2017.
What we're concerned about is really the pace of increase rather than the level of debt on average. But what is worrisome is that in countries, particularly oil exporters, other natural commodity exporters, what we've seen is a pronounced increase in debt in the last couple of years. And there, of course, it reflects the big hits to their economies following the commodity price crash, the hits to revenue levels, the hits to their economies.
So taxing people more before you address these leakages, which are through corruption, mismanagement, will not help, because they are still going to collect all the money. And then there'll be another headline. 3 months down the line, billions have disappeared.
Onto the business of aviation. An airline startup in Nigeria, Green Africa Airways, has signed an $11.7 billion agreement with the American plane maker Boeing. That essentially involves the sale of up to 100 737 MAX 8 aircraft. Now, according to Boeing, the deal is the largest aircraft sale agreement they've ever signed anywhere in Africa, with the Nigerian carrier making a firm order for 50 planes, and it's gotten options as part of that contract for another 50 737 MAX 8s. The startup airline is based in Lagos. It says its objective is to operate as a value carrier, confirming essentially that it already has a full complement of senior staff. The firm is reportedly anchored by some faces familiar to the aviation industry, including Tom Horton, the former chairman and CEO of American Airlines, and Visram Vahidi, the former CCO of American Airlines. The holiday season is a boost to many countries' tourism sector. Kenya is absolutely no exception in that regard. But here's CGTN's Yasser Kim now, taking a look at how Egypt's tourism sector is bracing for the upcoming festivities and its performance in 2018. Tourism is considered to be one of the major sources of hard currency earnings for the North African economy.
Egyptian hotels and resorts are looking forward for the festive season. The sunny, warm weather in the Red Sea cities of Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada make it an attractive destination during the Christmas and New Year.
The season looks very promising. The hotels and resorts are fully booked. It's near impossible to find a room even for us Egyptians to enjoy the holiday. The improvements in the security and the successful crackdown on terrorism has helped bring back tourists from the US, Japan, Spain, Germany and the UK in big numbers.
The first 3 quarters of 2018 have recorded a 55% increase against the same period in 2017. However, the 8 million who visited the country are still much lower than the 15 million the new Minister of Tourism is targeting.
Rania Al-Mashad has been very active. She constructed the whole ministry to be more effective, hired qualified personnel and set up a comprehensive marketing and sales plan to attract more visitors in the short and medium term.
The all-important charter flights from Russia have not resumed yet since the 2015 passenger plane crash in Sharm el-Sheikh, depriving Egypt from over 2 million Russian visitors a year. But Chinese tourism has been steadily increasing to reach 500,000 in 2018, up from about 300,000 the year before.
Egypt is a beautiful country with a great civilization like China, so I had to come see it myself.
In 2019, the government plans to inaugurate the new Grand Museum, one of the largest in the world, as well as refurbishing the Pyramids area. Unlike the previous 5 years, 2018 has been a good year for tourism in Egypt, and analysts expect that 2019 would be even better. Yes, Haki for CGTN, Cairo.
Right, then away from the continent to US politics now. The partial shutdown of the US government could stretch right into the new year. Some 800,000 federal workers are caught right in the middle of this budget battle. Most haven't felt the effects just yet. But as CGTN's Toby Muse now reports, that could very well change if this closure continues.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everything. The White House is warning the third government shutdown this year could last into 2019. Here is President Donald Trump's incoming chief of staff.
I think that is, it's very possible that the shutdown will go beyond the 28th and into the new Congress.
The U.S. government was partially shut down on Saturday after the White House and the Congress could not agree on a spending bill moving forward. Trump is demanding $5.7 billion to fund a wall on the southern border to stem illegal immigration and drug trafficking.
In order to get us out of this mess, a negotiated solution will need to check these boxes. It's really simple, Mr. President, really simple. It will need the support of 60 senators, which will obviously include a number of Democrats.
Democrats oppose the wall, calling it a waste. The shutdown affects 800,000 federal employees. More than half of them, approximately 420,000 workers, are deemed essential and will have to work without pay, although they likely will get paid eventually. The remaining employees will be furloughed and could miss a paycheck, depending on how long the shutdown lasts. Essential government agencies like air traffic control and border security will remain open. The effects of the shutdown could be felt when people return to work after the holidays. At least one Republican has criticized the president's stance on funding, saying it's a made-up fight. Funding for the wall could become more difficult when the Democrat-controlled Congress takes office in January. Both sides are blaming each other, although earlier this month President Trump had said he would proudly take credit for the shutdown. Trump and the Democrats are under tremendous pressure from their supporters not to back down in this fight, even as the two sides continued to negotiate Sunday. And America wonders who will blink first. Toby Muse, CGTN, Washington.
And finally, the Chinese internet giant Alibaba has this week opened the Flizhou Hotel in East China's Zhejiang province. If you're a guest there, you can check in, you can get into your room, you can even get room service, all of that without ever having to talk to another member of Homo sapiens. But all of these digital features also raising some privacy concerns. CGTN's Wu Lei now reports.
Opening a door with your face and controlling the room's lights, television and curtains via a smart speaker. 25-year-old Sam Wang couldn't wait to try these techie amenities at this futuristic hotel. He and his grandparents are among the first group of lucky guests.
It's really very convenient. We don't have to waste our time waiting in lines. Many services like check-in can be done with a mobile phone. And I feel more secure with the help of this technology and these smart facilities.
Aside from the mobile phone option, customers can also check in via these automatic machines in the lobby. Robots can carry out room services like meal delivery. Other robots are deployed to serve dishes, cocktails, and coffee. So will all these robots put the human hotel staff out of a job?
I'm not worried about this. Machines and robots can only do some repetitive and programmatic work. The robots can save us a lot of time so that we can provide more quality and customized service for our customers.
On the Flizhou Hotel's first day, staff say most of the 290 rooms have already been booked. Facial recognition is widely used in this futuristic hotel. You can enter this fitting room with just your face. Here we go. Many customers say technology is making hotels more convenient and upgrading their services. But others say information safety and privacy are major concerns. Sam follows hotel trends very closely. He says many technological advancements often come with risks.
This kind of smart hotel faces risks of customer information leakage. Hotels will never leak or sell personal info, but some hackers may attack the internet and steal information.
Many hotels across the world are now teaming with tech companies to upgrade their facilities with AI and Internet of Things technologies. Flizhou Hotel's CEO says safety and service will always be their top priority.
So we already considering about this kind of issue. First of all, we will completely comply with the local government policy and the local law. That is one. Secondly, with our system capabilities, because all of our system we are cloud-based, we have more and more strong capability to protect those data and the privacies from our individual guests.
Andy Wang says this hotel was 1.5 times more efficient than its competitors. As hotels become smarter and more automated, customers now expect more quality and customized experiences. Wu Lei, CGTN, Hangzhou, Zhejiang Province.
All right, I'll leave it there for the time being. Here's what's coming up at the top of the hour, though, in global business. We'll go back to South Africa. Its multinational carrier, SAA, is the target of an unsolicited offer to fund it to the tune of a few $1 billion. We'll explore that and plenty more from across the continent at 1800 GMT. See you then. For now, though, back to Richard.
All right, thanks, Rama. Remember, you're watching Africa Live on CGTN. We have a whole lot more news coming your way. And don't forget, here's a look at what's ahead. Why diabetes could be harder to treat in the future.
Join us in global business and see Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
to bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. With cases of adult onset diabetes on the rise, there are fears that insulin will become harder to treat in the future due to both shortages and insulin high costs. Richard Nta took a look at diabetic care in Kenya and how the country might be impacted in the future. Let's take a look.
Cynthia Akini has come for a consultation to Kenya's Diabetes Management and Information Center. For the past 5 years, the center has supplied her with insulin at no cost and helped her manage her condition.
Like when we come here, our sugars are in control. They're going to give us the information on how to continue the best control. And if they are bad, we're going to get advices. We're going to see our fellow colleagues who are good.
She is part of a growing number of type 2 diabetics living in Africa, and many of those patients need insulin. That's where fears of a shortage come in. A recent study by the Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology Journal predicts the amount of insulin needed to treat type 2 cases will rise by more than 20% over the next 12 years. But researchers say only about half the patients who need it at that time will be able to get it. Africa and Asia are set to be the hardest hit.
It's predicted that increase, most of it will be in Africa and the Asia countries or the continent. And Africa, we're actually doing badly because our increase will be almost 50%.
3 companies dominate worldwide production of insulin: Novo Nordisk, Sanofi, and Eli Lilly. Dr. Nta said she discussed the issue with representatives of Novo Nordisk, who tell her they're prepared to meet future needs.
That is the notion that we're going to have a crisis of insulin. But they say if countries were able to judge or to actually establish the actual need, the situation, do a situation analysis on the ground, find out how much insulin the country needs, and order in time, they will get the supplies.
But supply is only part of the problem. Its cost is another. Dr. Nta Center helps patients pay for their treatment. She also understands how poor planning by health authorities can eventually hurt patients like Cynthia. In partnership with Kenya's Ministry of Health, Dr. Nta is helping to compile a registry of all of the country's diabetics, giving them the data needed to plan ahead and avert a crisis. Richard Nta for CGTN in Nairobi, Kenya.
The University of Cape Town, or UCT, is widely regarded as one of the leading universities in Africa, so it was no surprise that it was recently ranked as the top African university on a global performance scale, rating universities around the world. Zimbabwean law student Gloria Pedamoya Chikaonda says the University of Cape Town is a vibrant place of excellence where she feels at home and safe and surrounded by highly driven, hardworking students who constantly make her strive harder to achieve her academic goals. Let's take a look at that.
My name is Gloria Pedamoya Chikaonda. I've been at UCT for 7 years. I was born and raised in Harare, Zimbabwe. That's where I did my primary and high school. And then I came to UCT in 2012. I started with a Bachelor of Social Science in International Relations, French and Law, which I did for 3 years and graduated in 2014. And then in 2016, I graduated with my law degree, my LLB.
Gloria has just completed her master's degree specializing in comparative law in Africa and hopes to do her doctorate in law and society and African customary law next.
I love UCT. It's why I've been here for 7 years. It's why I did my first degree, then my second degree, third, and I'm going on a fourth degree now. I love learning here. It's kind of like learning while you're on holiday because the geography of the place is just so beautiful. But the institution itself is also very supportive academically, and the student life for me has been the most vibrant part and the most enriching part of my experience here. I've met so many different people from different countries. It's a cosmopolitan city by nature, and so the demographic of the university reflects that as well.
She says she prefers the classroom to the courtroom and believes a modern, technologically advanced institution like UCT is the perfect place of learning for students like her to achieve their goals.
Over the years, the university has garnered a reputation for producing the best students. You really feel that when you arrive here, that you're among the best students, whether it's in the classroom or just outside hanging socially, just the conversations that we have. Coming from UCT, I think, plays quite a big role in terms of giving you that added advantage with that competitive edge when you're job hunting. Because when we have our careers events, a lot of the headhunters come here and they tell us we seek UCT students because they know that we're hardworking, they know that we're talented, and they know that we're qualified. So I think that when you hold a UCT degree, it really helps you in the job market.
Gloria is proud that she'll be the first person in her family to obtain a master's degree when she graduates at UCT for a third time in December. Right now, she's trying to raise enough money to pursue her PhD abroad in 2019. And there's no doubt the only way this young woman is headed is up.
In the near future, I see myself as a thought leader on the continent, particularly in the area of law and legal academia, really teaching people about the history of our continent and how that's affected the legal systems in the various countries. I was recently accepted into Stanford University and Cornell University to do a second master's. So my plan is to go there, do a second master's, and continue with my PhD as well. And just kind of take the legal academic field by storm, pretty much.
Renee Dalcom, CGTN, Cape Town, South Africa.